welcome everyone to today's video. So over the last couple of years, some of the biggest, most lucrative airdrops that we've seen have come from the new layer 2 blockchains that we've seen popping up. That includes Optimism and Arbitrum. The good news is that although you might have missed out on those ones, there are still a number of layer 2 blockchains that are set to launch this year, and although for a couple of them I think it's going to be maybe a little bit too late now, there are definitely some that probably won't launch until at least later this year, which gives you some time to use their mainnets, which are live now, and for you to build up some presence on those chains, which will ultimately lead to you qualifying for any upcoming airdrops on those chains. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today is my opinion on what's important with these layer 2 airdrops, and we can only go off what we've seen in the past. So the stuff that qualified you for Optimism, for Arbitrum and for Starknet, which have been the three main large layer 2 airdrops that we've seen in the past year or two. So we can kind of use those requirements to try and predict in the future what some of these other layer 2s which are going to launch are also going to have as requirements. Now, each blockchain has done things a little bit differently, obviously, and I'm 100% sure that the airdrops that are waiting to happen for the other blockchains are also going to have slightly different requirements. We can only go off what we've seen so far. Try and stand ourselves in the best chance possible to qualify for the airdrops. So the first point is probably the least important one, because I think maybe Optimism using the testnet might have qualified you for a small airdrop, but generally speaking, being very, very early onto these layer 2 platforms and using the number of, because usually a lot of these chains went through a number of different testnet phases and devnet phases, which what usually happens is until they kind of get to where they're ready, these chains, they get wiped anyway, and all your transaction history gets wiped, and until the next version of the testnet comes along. So I do find participating in these testnets probably the least important part. I mean, I think it's always important to be early. Maybe you'd be able to be granted some roles, or there could be some special quests that happen early on that could give you maybe a little bit of an extra incentive to be there early and get those roles and stuff. But speaking from what we've seen in the past, it's not too important to be early enough to use the test nets, because it's been mainly your activity on the main nets which has been what ends up qualifying you for these airdrops. So next is obviously bridging funds over onto the mainnet. Pretty much all of them required you to bridge at least a certain amount over there, and obviously use their mainnet. Obviously, I think for every single one, the amount that you bridged determined how many tokens you would have got. So people that were bridging more money, more than 1,000, more than 10,000, more than 100,000, were earning more tokens than the people who were bridging less money. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So if you can and you have got the funds available, you bridge large amounts. You don't have to keep large amounts on those chains, but bridge a large amount over. And one good technique that you can use is use layer 0 protocols to then bridge between the protocols. So not only you don't need to keep all those funds on that chain at one time. So what you're doing there is you're bridging one set amount of money across all the different layer 2 chains. But also at the same time, if you're using layer 0 protocols, you can qualify yourself for a potential layer 0 airdrop as well, which is something we're going to talk about in this video. So the next points I wanted to touch on, and stuff that you need to do in these layer 2 protocols, is that once your funds are bridged over there, you need to make sure you're doing transactions, and you need to make sure you're doing them often. So technically how it works and how Starknet, Arbitrum and Optimism worked, they worked on how active you were each month. Were you making transactions in a number of different months, and the more months that you were making transactions within the main net phase, obviously the higher the amount of tokens that you were allocated. So you need to make sure you're building your transactions up. On some bot chains it's easier than others, because Starknet, for example, transactions could be $1.50 to $2 each time, which means if you're trying to get a $50 you're trying to get 50 transactions on the chain, you're going to be spending over $100, which just isn't good for some people, especially if you're trying to get multiple wallets into these. But I mean, for different ones like Base, the transactions are so cheap, it's much easier to build up. But at least just try and do as many as you can relative to the amount of funds that you've got available to be farming these airdrops. And the next thing is also volume. But the more money you have and the more transactions you make, the more volume you're going to have. But generally speaking, the more volume you have on that chain and more transactions, the bigger airdrop that you're going to receive. Interacting with as many contracts as well. So, I mean, it's much better to be constantly swapping different coins with different contracts, or minting or buying NFTs, or interacting with protocols which interact with new smart contracts, rather than just swapping money between ETH and USDT back and forth, which is using the same contracts over and over again. One important thing about these layer 2 airdrops is that I think each protocol so far, each chain, has kind of had their own take on how they should try and prevent Sybil attacks, which is people trying to farm the airdrop with multiple wallets. I mean, I think it's important to have, because the people out there, some developers and some people who are really clued up on the smart chain can end up really farming a large quantity of the airdrop and leave less funds for people like us who are trying to do it normally. But one thing to take into consideration is that, generally speaking, the airdrops that the wallets that you're using to try and get qualified for the airdrops, is you want to make sure there's some funds in there. So what I mean by that is that, say for example, you're trying to farm the Linea blockchain, you want to make sure that you have at least some Ethereum on the Linea chain, and preferably on the Ethereum layer 1 as well, because I'm pretty sure Optimism had a requirement that you had to have some ETH in your wallet, and there've been Starknet and maybe another one where you had to have Ethereum layer 1 activity on your wallet, so you couldn't just withdraw straight from a centralized exchange onto Base, for example, and then start trading, because if you didn't have any previous transactions on layer 1 on Ethereum, then you wouldn't qualify for the airdrop. So make sure your wallets have activity on the Ethereum layer 1 chain, and also make sure that you have some funds on that wallet just lay there. I mean, I think the highest we've seen recently was Starknet, which required 0.005 Ethereum on their blockchain, otherwise you wouldn't qualify, which actually one of the wallets, because I used Bravo wallet and I also used Argent-X to try and get a bigger airdrop, and my Bravo wallet actually didn't end up qualifying for Starknet, even though I had done a bunch, all the other requirements. And the reason was because at the stage where they took the snapshot, I had changed all of my ETH into USDC at the time, but only left like $2 worth of Ethereum on the chain, and because of that, one of my wallets didn't qualify for the Starknet airdrop. So that's definitely something that you need to take into consideration, because you don't want to be wasting all this money on gas fees just to be let down by something like that at the end. And yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell all the things that you want to be focused on doing. There are some that also might end up giving extra tokens if you're staking certain amounts of money over there. I'm sure Manta had something like that. So these are the main things that you want to be focusing on when you want to try and get yourself set up and qualified for these upcoming layer 2 tokens. So we're going to go ahead and speak one by one about the main ones that you want to be focusing on right now, and maybe one or two that might be a little bit too late. but I just want to talk about them anyway. So the first one here, you can see it's base. Now the mainnet's been out for a while, so you can come straight to their native bridge, because one thing is about, I mean, you can use whatever you want to bridge the funds, right? Like I was saying before, I think the smartest thing to do would be to use a bridge that is powered by layer 0, and so you can also get yourself qualified for a layer 0 airdrop as well. But sometimes the protocols do require that you have bridged at least a small amount using their own native bridge. So if I was you, what I would come on here and at least bridge a certain amount using their native bridge. Once you get your funds on there, as I said, use different exchanges. Base is available on Uniswap, 1inch, like a bunch of different dexes. You can go ahead and build up your volume and your transactions and your contract. And yeah, I think with base we've definitely still got a decent amount of time. I can't see this airdrop happening at least until late 2024 to 25. So now's a good time for you to come on, start making some transactions, build up your volume, and then make sure you're coming back every month and at least doing 1 or 2 more transactions, so that by the time the airdrop does happen, that your wallet has been active over a long period of time, because I think that's something that's very important as well. The next one I want to talk about is Linea. Now, so Linea is much more secure in terms of trying to prevent Sybil attacks. I'm going to go over everything in a new video, so I'm not going to talk about it too much now. But the same rule applies for Linea. I'm pretty much sure that there's no snapshot yet. They've got like an online quest thing going on called Linea Park, where you're going to be able to earn their Linea XP tokens, which I'm pretty sure are going to be what's going to qualify you for the airdrop in the coming up in the future. So I'll make a whole video on that, on Linea Park, how to get your wallet qualified and how to earn some of those Linea XP points. So moving on, this isn't a layer 2 project, but I do think this is going to be one of the biggest airdrops of the year. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on it, and also I think it ties in quite well because you can kind of do 2 birds with 1 stone here, and you can build up your layer 0 transaction volume and bridging volume at the same time when you bridge from one of these layer 2 chains to another using layer 0 protocols. You know, you're going to build up your bridging and volume on those chains, but you're also going to build it up in layer 0, which, as I said, I think is going to be one of the biggest airdrops this year. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to leave this until a separate video, and I'm going to make a video to show you guys which protocols you can use, which use layer 0, and how you can bridge from one chain to another, and then one chain to another, and make sure that you qualify for all these different layer 2 airdrops, as well as build up a nice amount of volume using layer 0. So the next one I want to talk about is zksync. So I've made a bunch of videos on this before. I've been making videos since maybe 2022 about zksync and how to get yourself set up. So I hope you guys who do watch my videos have followed my old videos on this, and you should be set up quite nicely for an upcoming airdrop with zksync. I think now with this one, there's been a lot of rumours about snapshots being taken. There was a rumour about them snapshot being taken in February last month, and there's another one about a snapshot that happened yesterday. So it's all speculation. It's nothing 100% confirmed. However, there is evidence that is shown, you know, in their GitHub that a snapshot has already been taken for this. So if you're someone who's never try to get yourself set up for this airdrop, I'll probably say a little bit too late to start now. If you're somebody who, you know, you already have done the previous stuff, you've used all the test nets, you've built up some nice volume and stuff on the mainnet, I'll just make sure, go and double check that you've done all the things that you should have done, because I think making sure that you used all the different, like zksync Lite for example, I think it's going to be important that you make sure that you bridge funds over there and build up some nice volume on this chain as well. And so the last one I wanted to talk about today is Scroll. Again, with this one, I think we've got still, I think it could happen this year, this airdrop, but I still think we've got some time to build up some more transaction volumes on this chain. And what I would do again is I would do an initial bridge into Scroll using their native bridge, and then once on there, make a bunch of transactions. Again, you can use bridge using I think you can even use it using PancakeSwap now. Definitely you can use 1inch, build up a bunch of transaction volume, use a bunch of the apps that are available on their mainnet now, and yeah, just keep coming back every month and building up that volume and transactions. And that's really the main way that you get yourself qualified for these airdrops. Yeah, I just wanted to stress again that make sure you don't spend all of your money on the chain that you bridge over. Do leave some Ethereum on those wallets, because I'm pretty sure for most of them, empty wallets will not qualify for airdrops. So make sure you're at least leaving some amount of Ethereum. At least try and do at least $15-20 on each wallet, just so you make sure that you don't end up getting disqualified like I did for one of my wallets on Starknet, just because I didn't have enough Ethereum in that wallet. And yeah, so these are the main upcoming layer 2s, Base, Linea, Scroll. I think you've still got time to get yourself qualified for those, build up your volume and transactions on there. zksync, you're a little bit too late probably. Layer 0 as well, we're not really sure whether a screenshot has been taken for that, but you know, if you haven't used any of these protocols and you're having to bridge to them anyway and build up your volume, you might as well use layer 0 protocols there, just in case. And yeah, so it's been a long video today, so I'm going to stop there, guys. Like I said, I'm going to make another video soon going into more detail on Linea and Linea Park and how you get yourself qualified for that, and probably another one on layer 0 as well, showing you the different protocols that you can use in order to bridge between all these different layer 2s to get yourself qualified for everything. And yeah, so thanks for listening, guys, as always, and until next time.